state share of general fund assistance, the general assistance program funding has more than doubled since 2004, from $5.6 million to $12.9 million in 2014. The cost increases are primarily driven by the City of Portland, which currently utilizes 63% of all state general assistance funds. Under the current general assistance program structure, the state reimburses 50% of expenditures up to a threshold of 0.0003 of a municipality's property tax base and 90% thereafter for remaining expenditures. Only 3 municipalities, Portland, Bangor, and Lewiston, regularly reach a level that requires the state to reimburse at 90%. This reimbursement methodology does not provide a proper incentive. It rewards a municipality for spending more by providing a higher reimbursement for reaching a higher level of spending. The proposed change in reimbursement methodology would provide a 90% reimbursement on the front end for every municipality. This would ensure that each city and town has an opportunity for some state funding at a 90% match. The municipality would receive 90% match up to 40% of a municipality's 6-year weighted average, weighted by the state's unemployment rate for each state fiscal year, and would provide a 10% reimbursement thereafter for additional expenditures. This provides incentive for a town to carefully manage their general assistance costs in order to make as much of their total general assistance expenditures as possible be matched at the 90% rate. 232 municipalities would receive more funding if their spending remains consistent with their 2014 GA expenditures. 173 towns would receive less. However, if any municipality spends within their respective capped amount, they can continue to receive a 90% match as opposed to the historical 50% match. This initiative aligns reimbursement for GA to incentivize prudent fiscal management, provide fairness across the state by allowing each municipality an opportunity for 90% state funds, and bring stability to the GA program. It also prioritizes savings of $5,425,960 in each fiscal year to fund the Section 21 wait list, providing home and community-based services for main care members with intellectual disabilities or autistic disorder. The $5.4 million annually will allow Maine to leverage a total of $10.4 million annually in additional federal funds to serve this disabled population.
Senator Brackett.
Since Portland here appears to be a major outlier, and if you don't have this information right at the top of your head, I certainly understand. But at what point in the year, or how quickly, does Portland go through the 50% match and hit the 90% reimbursement?
Typically in the first quarter.
So in the first quarters. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Representative McTeen.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I understand the proposal, I think, although again, we can sort of tease through it during the work session, but I was wondering if there's some additional information we could get from the work session. One would be, could we get a list on a municipality by municipality basis of what they're currently receiving? I know there's some information in the packet that shows us about 20 different municipalities, and there's certainly outliers at both ends of that chart. But I'd like to see a total list of municipalities in Maine. I would presume, and maybe the information is wrong, that there might be some municipalities that don't provide any general assistance. I'd certainly like to see if there are any communities out there that aren't meeting those obligations that municipalities jointly share. Your testimony alludes to, a list of who would get more reimbursement. I'm trying not to use the word winners, but who would get more reimbursement, who would get less reimbursement. I assume that's a list that you could share with us.
Absolutely, applying this methodology. And again, the assumption is using what was expended in 14 if that were to stay constant.
Understood. It's a projection. And again, I guess generally, what I'd like to get from the department at the work session is what the department's best assessment is of what the needs are for GA throughout the state. I know we're going to have conversations later in the week and through this budget process around, again, wait lists and for services that are for people on wait list, we have an idea about what the needs are because the department maintains a wait list. We're going to have conversations about reimbursement for nursing homes, and we know what our nursing home bed capacity is and how many people may be waiting for the services. But what I don't understand, or what I don't see here, is any sort of needs-based assessment driving the formulation of this budget. And I think that would be helpful to me as we tease through this proposal and try to figure out what to do with it.
Happy to.
Thank you.
And Representative Martin.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, will you provide us a list for the work session of the number of beds that each community has available on any given night for people who may be without places to live?
Homeless shelters, Representative?
And
We can certainly provide what we have. Main State Housing Authority may have broader or comprehensive information on that front, but we'll certainly reach out to them as well.
well, you are right, but you are paying for those through the communities, whether they're
Not-
main housing or...
Not every community bills the state for their homeless shelter expenses.
I'd like to see a list of those that don't.
Happy to provide what we have for information.
Thank you. And of the 5.4 million that you claim will be saved here, how much money will go for the Drugs for Elderly program?
This proposal is putting all of these funds in support of the costs associated with the $46 million that's necessary to address the wait lists for individuals with physical disabilities and intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Thank you.
Representative Grant.
Just a quick question. I'm sure that you've given it to us in all this paper, but how many were on the Section 21 wait list? How many individuals?
In total of the combined wait lists, there are over 1,000 individuals on the Section 21 wait list. And I appreciate a lot of paper, but I do hope that what we were trying to do was to anticipate a lot of your data and questions and requests in advance so that you'd have some time to spend with those fact sheets. So I apologize if it's overwhelming, and certainly if there's any information that we can follow back up with, we're happy to do that.
No, I don't mean to criticize you for paper. I'm the person that always asks for data. I love paper.
Good. We have lots of it at
But
DHHS.
it's very complex, and so sometimes a number that's over here in this pile doesn't transfer over to that pile. So thank you. It's just quicker for me to ask you because I know you've got it right off the top
Well,
of
we'd
your
like to
head.
think I do, yes. All right.
Representative Sandborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, I'm wondering why you feel a need to pit one needy group against another. Yesterday, it seemed to be primary care against the Fund for Healthy Maine, and today it's people with disabilities on the wait list against folks needing GA. And I think that everybody
order,
in
Mr.
this
Chair.
room...
Representative Sanderson.
Point of order, we're here to ask,
Microphone, please.
point of order, we're here to ask the commissioner to present the initiatives before us and ask questions and information, not to give our opinions of what's being done.
I'm asking a question. I'm asking why we're pitting one needy group against another.
I'm happy to answer. We're not
Answer,
pitting.
please.
That's what, if other people want to describe this as pitting, that's not how we're describing it. Everybody in their personal budgets has to make choices. This state, across its budget, has to make choices. We are making choices and decisions about what we can fund, what we can't fund, and what we believe requires additional investment. We are not pitting, we are reprioritizing to address critical needs that we believe have been ignored for years. We are not pitting.
And this goes back to a statement I made earlier about political philosophy here. And
That has nothing to do with political philosophy. Serving the people of Maine.
I'm happy to continue. On page 339.
I do have a question.
Senator Haskell.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Mayhew, obviously I'm from the city of Portland, and I've been engaged and caring about this community of folks who are receiving GA. And the City of Portland has some very effective programs to move people off GA into housing and into work. We have three categories of folks who are getting GA. Those are asylum pending, visa holders, and all other clients. In that all other clients, in the last 3 years, there's been over 500 person reduction in the number. I'm not sure that's been recognized, and I was wondering if in this proposal you would look at any prioritization, understanding what the dynamics are that are changing the numbers that are receiving GA, whether there's any recognition in the population that has been reduced by the efforts of that community, and vis-a-vis the number of people who have grown in other categories. Do you consider a proposal that might split that up?
Well, certainly through the deliberations around this budget, we're happy to contemplate requests for additional analysis around the program, around the proposal. There are a number of data points that we've provided that we're still seeking further understanding and explanation of that don't seem to equate with either Portland's size as compared to other equally sized population areas in terms of the spend per capita, the spend per person in poverty, the costs associated with providing services in a homeless shelter. So there are lots of factors that are affecting, but we still continue to have concerns around the effective fiscal management of the program. But I'm certainly interested in further understanding specifically what you might have us take a look at in an analysis.
Thank you.
Representative Jorgensen.
Thank you. For the work session, maybe we could talk a little bit about I'm looking at the Section 21 waiver wait list, and it says that two of the priorities are for the vast majority of people on that wait list are priority for living in unsafe or unhealthy circumstances. I'd just like to understand more about that and about members who've been offered the waiver and have not responded to the offer. Because certainly it seems to me that living in a homeless shelter, for example, would be an unhealthy circumstance. I see the GA program as a housing program.
Well,
I just like to, we don't need to talk about that now, but I'd like to maybe explore that wait list at some point.
sure, but I'm happy to at least comment. I think we're talking about a significant difference between someone with an intellectual and developmental disability that is in need of either supports within their home or is in need of 24/7 residential services, and that is clearly the prioritization that we're making. But happy to provide you with more detail about the individuals on those wait lists.
Senator Brady.
So looking at some of these numbers here, a question trying to compare apples to apples as best as we can. So you look at the city of Portland, where you're looking at over $10 million in 2014 on general assistance spending, equating to about $750 per person in poverty. When you look at Lewis and Auburn and you combine those numbers, you have similar numbers of those in poverty and similar numbers of population size. Portland, you're looking at, as we previously discussed, 63% of the state GA spending going into Portland. Lewis and Auburn, I believe that's about 5% of GA spending. You're talking about at least 10 times less. Do you know what might be some of the factors that contribute to this big disparity, where you have two urban centers with similar populations and similar levels of poverty, but you have such a huge disparity in the amount of general assistance spending?
Well, certainly, as we've talked about, there are a number of issues here, but primarily this is about eligibility and eligibility determinations, and whether or not we believe that those determinations are being done consistently and certainly in compliance with the statutory and regulatory requirements of the program. That is fundamentally where we certainly have some concerns.
Representative Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like for just a moment to step back to where we were just a few minutes ago when there was an objection to line of questioning. And I would just like to say this, both to you, Commissioner, and to all of my colleagues on both of these committees. Our budget is a document that reflects our values and priorities as a state. And I think the administration is trying to make a good case for why you're selecting particular priorities. And I don't think it's inappropriate for anyone to ask questions about how those priorities were arrived at, and to ask for some of the information about the philosophical assumptions underneath those decisions. And so I would ask courtesy among members of both committees that we are trying to grapple with very complex issues that affect human beings. And human beings are going to be impacted by the decisions we make. And so I would just ask us to please have a little courtesy for our level of questioning. It's not to question your motives or your morals, but just to help us come to a place where our budget is a reflection of our collective values. Thank you.
Representative Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, for the work session, or before the work session, would the department perhaps be able to provide us with the number of homeless nights being built in different shelters to the department across the state, and what the average reimbursement was?
Yes.
Thank you.
It looks like we're moving on.
All right. On page 339. This is actually reducing funding in the Office of Main Care Services, but pertains to an eligibility requirement within the Office for Family Independence. So it is a savings, a general fund savings in state fiscal year 16 of $303,553, and in 17 of $364,264. This initiative, and this initiative has been in front of the committee several times with committees, this initiative reduces funding by changing the disability determination timeframe from 45 to 90 days. This initiative reduces funding by aligning the time periods to complete main care applications with the federal requirements, and eliminates the state's obligation to provide temporary medical coverage when these standards are not met. Temporary medical coverage is paid for by 100% general fund dollars. This initiative also directs the department to seek relief in court from the 1976 Polk versus Longley consent decision. This decision holds the department to a 45-day main care application processing standard and requires the application of temporary coverage. This is inconsistent with federal law. Federal requirements allow for a 90-day processing standard for applications based on disability, and does not require states to provide temporary medical assistance when the processing times are not met. Page 350. This initiative continues 16 limited period eligibility specialist positions created in Public Law 2013, funded 25% general fund and 75% other special revenue funds in the Office for Family Independence through June 10, 2017. These temporary positions are needed to continue the implementation of various provisions under the Affordable Care Act.
Questions?
Page 350 and 348. This initiative reallocates one family independence unit supervisor position from 50% general fund and 50% other special revenue funds in the Office for Family Independence program to 50% general fund and 50% other special revenue funds in the Office for Family Independence district program. This initiative aligns the position with a medical review team that was moved out of the central office. Page 348. This initiative transfers one public service manager 2 position from 65% federal expenditure fund and 35% general fund in the Office of Family Independence to 65% other special revenue and 35% general fund. 65% of the position was incorrectly established in the Federal Expenditures Fund in Public Law 2013. The Federal Expenditures Fund does not exist for the Office of Family Independence Program. The correct funding source should be other special revenue funds to be allocated across the appropriate federal programs. Page 384. This is similar to the 2 previous initiatives that we discussed related to non-citizens and food stamps and TANF benefits. This is pertaining to supplemental payment for SSI. This initiative reduces funding in the supplemental payment for SSI account by eliminating benefits for non-citizens. The general fund cuts amount to $716,855 in state fiscal year 16 and $955,806 in state fiscal year 17. Maine is one of only 5 states that provide this state-funded cash benefit. This action again aligns state policy with federal policy and allows the department to redirect valuable resources to the most vulnerable citizens.
Senator Haskell?
Thank you, Commissioner. Does the change between 15 and 17 indicate an increase in the number of non-citizens? Difference of $200,000?
Let us get back to you about the difference in the funding in the sequence.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Representative Ham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, I just want to clarify, it says this action aligns state policy and federal policy and allows the department to redirect valuable resources to Maine's most vulnerable citizens. Is that section 21 specifically?
It is to support a number of other priorities, and certainly $46 million is needed to support those wait lists, so that's a significant part of the budget that is pending before you.
Okay, it's going toward those initiatives, but not specifically.
Correct. There are 103 individuals that are currently receiving benefits in this program today.
Senator Brady?
I know when most people think of Social Security, it's thought of as a program that people pay into and then receive a benefit out upon retirement. This has it set up where it's we're paying out a state general fund. There's been no. Has anyone paid? I guess as a part of the social item taken out of a person's paycheck as far as Social Security goes. Has anyone paid into this fund from the population that's benefiting from it?
Yeah, we can certainly take a look at that and get back to you. This provision, unlike the previous reform that pertained to federally funded food stamps and TANF, and that pertained to individuals who had not been in the United States for more than 5 years. This is for individuals who have been in the United States for more than 7 years. They are not eligible for this benefit under the federal requirements.
Representative Martin?
Thank you. The fact that they were no longer receiving SSI would mean that they would not be covered under Maine care. Would that be accurate?
I'm not sure that they're not eligible under Maine care today. This is where the state, or certainly not for a federal match. This is for this benefit, and I will double check for your question, Representative Martin, but this pertains specifically to the state. When the federal government made the change, the state agreed to continue to provide this benefit after 7 years to these legal non-citizens.
Right.
And we'll double check on the Medicaid.
When they're receiving SSI, then they get covered for medical care. But if they'll get SSI, they won't be covered. That's the question.
And when those reforms were discussed in 2011 as part of the biennial budget, those, I believe, were rolled back, and we'll double check that.
Right, that's what I thought.
Representative Stuckey.
Thank you. Commissioner, for the work session, could you do the legwork and summarize for us the totals in FY 16 and 17 of the cuts to programs that serve legal non-citizens?
The three combined.
So we just get an aggregate
Sure.
of that was done.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Senator Brady.
I'm sorry, this is just a clarifying question on my last, to follow up on my last question. Is the requirement as the program currently exists that someone has, so a non-citizen who benefits from this, is the requirement that they have to have been here for 7 years in order to qualify?
No, it's the opposite, that the benefit is provided to them in the first 7 years,
Okay.
and they're not eligible if they're here longer than 7 years,
Okay.
as a legal non-citizen.
Okay. After that 7 years, do they qualify? What's the reason for the 7 years? Do they qualify for federal SSI at that point, or is it?
No, under the federal policy,
Yeah.
they are not eligible after 7 years. That is the federal restriction.
Okay. So as this currently is set up, someone can get this until they've been here for 7 years, and then when their 7 years, it ends with them.
Right, and I could surmise why, but we're happy to look a little bit further in terms of what the impetus was. This was a
Okay.
1997 reform.
Okay. Thank you. I'm very curious about that. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Seeing no others.
Page 351. This is seeking to continue 15 limited period customer representative associate 2 human services positions. This is requesting $474,917 in general fund in 16, $488,957 general fund dollars in 17, $475,022 in other special revenue in 16, and $489,002 in other special revenue in 17. These positions were originally established in Public Law 2011, Chapter 380, and continued in Public Law 2013. These positions were authorized to reduce the general fund cost of temporary coverage in the main care program. According to current state law, temporary coverage must be authorized and paid for through all state general fund dollars if it takes more than 45 days to process applications based on disability. This initiative is 100% funded by the general fund. The limited period positions were originally authorized July 1st, 2011 to reduce the number of applicants who were open to temporary coverage and therefore reduce general fund costs. These positions resulted in an 89% decrease in open temporary coverage cases. There is also language section BBB. The department is proposing to eliminate the 45-day main care processing requirement in state law and move to 90 days as required by federal regulations for applications based on disability. If this proposal is accepted, it would eliminate the need for the limited period positions. I just want to be clear, if the language is changed that reverts back to a 90-day as opposed to a 45-day, these particular positions would no longer be necessary and would certainly eliminate the state's obligation to provide temporary coverage for individuals applying for main care. Failure to accept the changes noted above or to authorize these limited period positions in the upcoming budget will result in an increased cost to the general fund due to the rise of applicants being open to temporary coverage.
Representative Grant.
I just wanted to be clear, this came up in my mind in the previous go-around on this, when you presented this just a few minutes ago. So we're stretching out the time it takes to process a claim from 45 days to 90 days. So that saves us money. Is this a reflection of how long it actually takes to process these claims, or is it just to save money?
It is first and foremost to go back to aligning with what the federal requirement is, which is to process an eligibility application for disability within 90 days. The state's law and the Polk versus Longley consent decision from 1976 mandated that the applications be completed within 45 days, and that if that was not done, that the individual would receive temporary medical coverage at 100% state costs. This would put us back into, consistent with the federal requirements for Medicaid, 90-day determinations, no obligation related to 100% state funds. We have data that we can provide you prior to these positions, what the average time frame was beyond the 45 days. Certainly the additional staff, as I've said, has reduced that related to the 45-day. But we can get you data on what would be provided, what we would expect within that 90-day commitment.
That would be very helpful for the work session. Thank you.
Senator Brady.
So my question is around the term temporary coverage. So, well, first of all, can you explain that a little bit better? Is that, you said that the state pays 100% of this temporary coverage. And what is that exactly? Is that coverage, what's the temporary nature of that? Is that until the federal government kicks in their share after 90 days?
No, and I'd have to take a look in terms of if they are ultimately determined eligible within that period of time, there is a retroactive ability to recover. But if they were ultimately determined ineligible, we are out the 100% general fund dollars that have been expended up until that point.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Oh, Senator Haskell.
Thank you. A couple of these are based on a 1976 law decision, decision. And I wonder if I could just see that, a copy of that.
Yep.
Be interested in their rationale.
Well, Representative Martin might be able to provide us some historical
Well,
perspective.
I haven't been here since 76, almost.
We're happy to get you that. Just a little humor, Representative Martin.
I'm waiting patiently.
I know.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I was out 2 years, but this is a repeat of what I saw 3 years and 4 years ago. It's the same exact proposal, is it not?
Yes.
Is there a possibility that we could attach, the whole issue is whether or not something is done on time and so that the person does not suffer in the process. Is there a possibility we could put a penalty provision for people who don't do the work within that time period? So that, and that money would then go to the applicant?
Happy to respond to that and need to think about it. Certainly, we're held to federal standards about the 90 days, and there are certainly accountability expectations, but I can certainly give your...
Yeah, I think you may want to look at how quickly other states process. And if we could match what most states do, I don't think we'd have a problem.
We can certainly look, most states would be under the 90-day requirement. We can take a look at that, what their average is. Obviously, 90 is not the standard that we want to be striving for, but we can certainly take a look at that. And I would also be remiss if I didn't talk about our efforts around global modernization of our eligibility system and the data systems that will help to support more timely processing of applications, and that is also certainly underway within the department.
The other thing the department could look at is actually sourcing it out so that it could be done within the 90 days.
Happy to take that into consideration. On page 347, this is an initiative that is continuing 5 limited period social services program specialist 1 positions and 4 limited period eligibility specialist positions established in Public Law 2013, Chapter 368 at 25% general fund and 75% other special revenue funds through June 10, 2017. The general fund request here is $161,983.16 and $166,354 in 17, and corresponding other special revenue. These positions serve as trainers and help desk resources related to the federally facilitated marketplace. On page 347 and 365. This initiative transfers and reallocates one comprehensive health planner 2 position from 50% general fund and 50% other special revenue funds in the Office for Family Independence Program to 50% general fund and 50% federal expenditures fund in the Office of Main Care Services Program. The transfer will align the duties performed with the correct funding source. Page 348. This initiative continues 4 limited period eligibility specialist positions funded 50% general fund and 50% other special revenue funds in the Office for Family Independence Program through June 10th, 2017, requesting $137,192 in general fund in 16, $140,440 general fund in 17. The other special revenue is $137,180 in 16 and $140,440 in 17. These positions assist veterans in obtaining benefits through the Veterans Administration, certainly at a cost savings to the state and also to help ensure access to critical benefits. Additionally, these positions support the department's efforts related to fraud detection within the electronic benefit transactions program. On page 387, this initiative provides...
Commissioner, Representative Dean?
Thank you. Commissioner, is there a connection there? Is this part of the Paris initiative? Would you say that part of what these people do is they assist veterans in obtaining benefits, and then there's also these positions for fraud efforts? Is there an intermingling there? Or?
Is there a connectivity?
Yeah, okay.
No. I mean, this is individuals that are certainly dealing with eligibility and identifying veterans through the process that we're using to screen. They also are supporting efforts around identification of fraud in data analytics within the electronic benefit transactions.
So they were 2 different hats. They have part of their job is one, and the other part of their job is the other.
Maximizing.
Okay, thank you.